So we're going to have a lot of fun here in the next while here on Taking the Reins as we chat to Brett Crawford and get a whole lot of stories, a whole lot of information, a whole lot of memories as well on this edition of Taking the Reins, just as we get the Cape Summer Festival of Racing going. And here we are in the hallway at Hollywood Bets Kenilworth at the Wall of Honour for the World Sports Betting Cape Town Met, which Brett's got some very familiar memories. Brett, thanks so much for your time today. We really, really appreciate it. And here we are just looking through the early 2000s. Your first one came in 2003 with Angus. But let's backtrack to perhaps the most bittersweet part of this entire interview. A year earlier when Polo Classic won. I mean, what were your recollections when Polo Classic won the Met? And how did you feel with your first big horse and the first big race not getting across the line in the form of Angus?
Well, it was a bit of mixed emotions, Alistair. You know, firstly, having just started my first season of training, to just get a horse into the Met was an achievement for the whole team. So that in itself was super excited. We actually thought he would run a really good race, and he did. You know, he was still, we'd only had him around the turn a couple of times, and he ran a fantastic race that day, just got beat by a better horse on the day. So, like I say, mixed emotions, the pleasure of getting into the race, the pleasure of him running as to how we expected him to run, and the disappointment of not winning at the time.
And then 6 months later, before we get to the 2003 Met, 6 months later, you only found Tombi in the Hollywood Bets Derby in July. I mean, you must have thought this poor horse was just not going to get a big one.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you know, none of us knew what she was going to go on and do after that day. And just the fact that she was a 3-year-old filly who literally beat us a short head on the line.
Tombi is giving the leader some 13 lengths start. Badgers Coast on the outside, Al Peacher and Young Ray. Destiny, Fiery Fred, Angus on the inside. Key of Destiny, Angus, it's getting closer. Tombi's flying from nowhere. Key of Destiny, Tombi won the July.
Quite frankly, that day, you know, we never even saw her. She like flashed up on the line, and we actually all thought we had won the July. So that was another high and low. But you know, we pretty much knew after the July that he was going to be a really tough horse to beat in the Met the following year, and you know, rightly so. Pierre rode a great race on him, and he won exceptionally well that day.
Did those expectations build a little bit of pressure, considering that you had the 6-month plan? I mean, I suppose it's a natural progression, and we'll chat about the horses in your yard now, of which 2 recent Hollywood Bets Derby in July winners, but you run second in the July, your program's kind of mapped out. So you go in with Angus, who's expected to go very well. You know, the fact that you hadn't had that big race winner yet, was there any extra pressure on you? Was it self-inflicted, or was it just that you believed that the day was going to come?
No, I think, you know, my whole career I've been taught that preparation is key, and basically the pressure comes when horses are not prepared properly and you have faults along the way or hiccups. This horse's preparation, I can tell you now, was probably one of the best I've ever had.
But it's set afire in Angus now. Eventual still 3 off the lead. In behind them comes Fremont, who's starting to kick on. But Angus has kicked clear inside the final 200. Eventual is out after him with set afire along the inside. But Angus is in full cry. Here comes Fremont with a rush up the outside. But Angus is hanging tough. And Angus goes on to win the JMP Met.
He was flawless. He had dapples on him the size of apples. He looked outstanding, and we went into the race with so much confidence. So to be fair, there was no real pressure from that side. It was more the expectation that he would pull off what he had shown us.
Let's just take a little walk further down, because of course over here 2015 you won with Futura under Glenn Hatt, and this was the start of you becoming Brett Crawford as we know, not attached to one yard, and we'll go down that road a little bit later on. How good was he?
Yeah, when he won this race, Bernard actually rode him.
Okay.
Glenn had won the previous Group 1 in Durban on him. He had won the Champions Cup after running, I think it was 3rd in the July. We ran a fantastic 3rd, and that's when he also announced himself as being a horse for the future. And then came back to the Cape. Obviously, Glenn unfortunately stopped riding, and Bernard actually rode him in the Queen's Plate, as it was called then, won that. And then, I mean, this day he also another horse that had a flawless prep.
Futura is coming home full of running between runners. It's Futura that strikes the front with 100 meters left to go, and Futura is drawing clear. Futura wins the JMP Met. It's a plan come together for trainer Brett Crawford, jockey Bernard Fadeherb. Futura comes home to win the JMB Met of 2015.
And he's pulled off the Queen's Plate and the JMB Met.
Fantastic. I mean, this is probably one of the ultimate races, and it's just so nice to be able to ride such decent horses in these races. Well done to Brett.
This horse has just given me such confidence since the Queen's Plate. He's really improved at home, and you know, a lot of people said to me, was I nervous? And to be honest, I wasn't, because this horse just did everything right. And you know, he showed it today. He showed his class. You know, it's his third Group 1 win in only 11 starts. You know, these are horses that come back once in a lifetime. The way he won, I mean, I haven't seen a horse for me win like he won the Met that day. I mean, he was, you know, Bernard was just waiting for the gaps to open, and phenomenal horse, and pleasure to train.
Here's a little bit of the highlights of the highs and lows that trainers go through, because soon after this, he exited your yard and went to Justin Snaith. How much of a bitter pill was that to swallow?
Yeah, listen, it's always difficult, you know, in the industry to lose top horses like that. It was a very sad day, but you know, unfortunately, it's, as I say, part and parcel of the game. And you know, he still went on and won another Group 1 after that. So, you know, he was just the real deal. And to get horses, to get the opportunity. So for me to have had him to have won 3 Group 1s was for me an honour in itself.
And he's become quite a stallion as well. If you want long distance, he's your man.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I've got a few that have done well for me, so he's definitely a stallion that's worth looking at, and you know, he's just been a good horse all round.
Futura gets driven into the lead with 100 metres left to go. Ashton Park, Louis the King over the top. He's wearing down Futura, drawing to the judge. Futura beats Louis the King.
And then over here, 2017, Whisky Baron and Greg Sheen. This was the start of your association with Ridgemont, really, when the Kieswetter boys decided that they were going to give racing a go, obviously purchasing what was known as Highlands, you know, super successful farm over the years from the Becks. But he was also a story in itself. He was never really going anywhere in such a rush until he was gelded. Did you always believe, though, that he had that type of progression to come?
I think, you know, he had always shown us work at home, but he was really such a big horse. He was like heavy, and you know, we knew gelding had to happen. And funny enough, from the day it happened, he was always a horse that was always good in his work. He showed a lot in his work, and he just kept progressing. And every time we brought him to the course, he just got better and better. So I think when he won the Met that year, if I'm not mistaken, it was his 5th win in a row.
Whisky Baron is now starting to unwind a run. Bella's also coming home well. Captain America's cried enough. Whisky Baron and Legal Eagle. It's Whisky Baron who's claimed the advantage. No more from Legal Eagle, and Whisky Baron goes on to win.
So he was just a horse that kept improving with each and every start, and yeah, I mean, Greg rode a fantastic race that day, and yeah, there were lots of celebrations that night.
It must have been a lot of fun training for, well, it still is a lot of fun training for the Kieswetter boys. I mean, you could tell with that whole lead-in what that day meant to them.
Yeah, very much so. You know, the fact that he runs in those colours, which is very close to the Kieswetter family, and to some degree to my heritage, you know, the Scottish flag. So it was a great day, and to be fair, he was a horse that we once again expected him to run very well.
And while we're at it, I mean, those are your 3 Met winners, but when you have a look at this wall, I mean, there are just so many famous names. I think back to that great Greenpoint Stakes where you had undercover agents again to do it again, and do it again obviously is down below with a Lomeral King's Plate. But, you know, any other horses that came against the champions like the Pocket Powers and the Igugus, and perhaps One World, Rainbow Bridge, who won it twice? Some top horses that just missed against those superstars?
Well, listen, you talk about top horses. Captain America, he's not featured here, but he ran in this race a few times, and he certainly didn't disgrace himself. You know, he won his three Group 1s between Durban and Johannesburg. Never quite got it right here. He ran 2nd in the Derby, 2nd in the Guineas as a 3-year-old. He was just a top horse. So he's not on this wall, but he certainly, you know, is a horse that's very dear to the Crawford yard.
Okay, well, let's go downstairs and kick things off. Thanks, Brett. So with all that in mind, here we are in the 1881 room, Brett, and let's start with the early life. Obviously Zimbabwean, born and bred. What was it like growing up in Zimbabwe at that stage of the game?
Yeah, listen, very special country. Obviously, had a very good upbringing there, and that's where the first passion for horse racing came at a very young age. So I used to go to Borrowdale Park a lot. One of my best mates, Kingsley Dalton, his father used to run the Jockey Academy there. So I used to spend a lot of time around the apprentices at the time in Zimbabwe, and obviously racing most weekends when I could get off school.
Just thinking of all the Zimbabweans that are here now, if you think of the guys up in Joburg, Roy Magnus, Stuart Pettigrew, Paul Matchett, we've got the Wrights in Durban, there are various others, there's so many. What do you think it is that makes the Zimbabweans such natural and such good horse people?
Look, I presume, it's just, it's coming out of a country where you had to be resilient, I think, first and foremost. But I think deep down there's obviously a big passion amongst the fraternity for the industry. I mean, when I was around, it used to thrive, the horse racing industry. Obviously, it's a lot harder now due to circumstances over the last 30, 40 years. But, people love their racing.
And if you think too, I mean, we've just gone through the Met War, what the Castle Tankard and the OK Grand Challenge means to the people of Zimbabwe, and the fact that we still have South Africans that try and raid if they got the right type of horse. That you talk about resilience, the way that those sort of pillars of Zimbabwean racing still remain.
Yeah, exactly. Quite right. I mean, the fact that they continue under the difficult circumstances that they have is a testament to them all. And that you still go to a lot of the sales throughout South Africa, and you still see them there buying horses to take back. So, hats off to them.
Now, when was it that you decided you want to get involved in racing? You could have chosen anything. Why horse racing? Why training racehorses?
Good question, Al. To be fair, it's not really it didn't run in the family. My grandfather was an avid race goer, but never owned a horse or had anything more to do than barring going to races on a Saturday afternoon. So I think it all stemmed from the close family connection that we had with the Muscat family. My two older brothers were both best friends with Peter and Paul Muscat. And obviously through that, I obviously used to spend a lot of time around them, and then used to go to stables a lot. And I think just fortunate for me that it's from an early age, it was something that I identified with, and it was just something that I was always going to do, be involved in horse racing to some degree. And for me, luckily, training was the right option for me, and it's worked out super well.
So when did you come to South Africa? How old were you?
1989, I think. I moved, came straight across to Joburg, and at the time I was helping Peter Muscat, who worked for David Payne at the time at Rankiesfontein. So it's a bit ironic, like my life has gone a full circle, because I started off in Rankiesfontein. Today I have a satellite yard with my son in Rankiesfontein, and then my first job in Cape Town was at Futura Park, where I now currently train at Futura Park. So it's been amazing.
Who did you learn from overall in your time in South Africa? You spoke about Peter Muscat via David Payne, but there were more bosses that you had along the way?
Yeah, look, very lucky for me, some great grounding. First job in Joburg was for Mike de Kock. Worked for Mike for, I think it was about 8 months. And
now you take his money on the golf course?
Oh, that's not easy to do,
No,
trust me. It's easy as I think in other aspects, but he's a very competitive golfer. But Mike, and that was fantastic. Mike had just started training, learned a hell of a lot from Mike in the short time that I was there. Then came to Cape Town. Peter just started in Cape Town. I worked for Peter for about 2.5 years. And I ran a satellite yard for Peter in Port Elizabeth for about 6 weeks. We had a terribly wet winter that year, and we opted, because there was no racing here, to send some horses there. And we did well in the short time we were there. So that was a great experience for me. Upon coming back, I was fortunate enough to get a job with Eric Sands. And I was with Eric for 5.5 years, I think nearly 6 years. In that as well, also ran the yard here when he was in Durban, and vice versa. I would go to Durban for some seasons, worked with some really good horses, Double Duel, Flow by You, to name a few. He was a real superstar. So that was, like, for me, it was a great a great grounding, and Eric's a exceptionally good horseman. Stable management, second to none, so learned a hell of a lot from him. And then after that, I was fortunate enough to go to Dennis and Jill Dreyer in Durban, and worked for them for also a good five years. And once again, you know, between Dennis coming down to the Cape, I was given an opportunity to be on my own for certain times of the year. And, you know, also learned a lot of the old school stuff through Uncle Den, you know, going back to Sydney Laird, who was his boss. So for me, I think I had a fantastic grounding as an apprentice, you know, to start off your future in the industry, learn from some of the best in the business. And then obviously after that, in 2001, I got afforded the opportunity to train for Sabine, which was amazing.
We talk about full circle moments. You brought up another one there. You worked for Peter Musker, and Peter Musker then worked for you. And when he returned to South Africa, did you go looking for these jobs? Obviously, the first job you would have knocked down the door and said, hello, I want to be a trainer. Can you show me the ropes? But with these grade 1 winning trainers that you learned from, were they knocking on your door saying, do you want to come and help me out?
I was very fortunate. I did get the opportunity from Eric and Dennis at the time. You know, they both approached me at the relative times and asked me. So for me, I was very fortunate that my career has always gone from one step to the next, and we've kept building on that. And then obviously being a private trainer for close to 8 years for Sabine, also having run dual yards, one in Cape Town and the other one in Durban for many years. You know, I think we ended up having 7 Group 1 winners together, which was fantastic. Got to work with some really good horses, and probably to this day, maybe questionably, probably the best horse ever, Laissez-Faire. She was just unbelievable. For me, as a young trainer, she won 3 Group 1s in 3 different provinces, and that is no mean feat from any racehorse today.
Laissez-Faire's put in her run now as they pass the 200. Golden looms in front. All will be well with a blue cap. Scion, Laissez-Faire and pillar the post, 100 to go. And all will be well, coming home strongly to hit the front. All will be well. Laissez-Faire's flying on her outside. They get to the line, a close call. Laissez-Faire on the grandstand side in a cracker.
No, 200, I thought she was really struggling. And inside the last 100, I mean, I got no words. I mean, she's got a heart the size of her body, I think.
Yeah, she's unbelievable filly. You know, you always know that she's going to give you 110%. And I must say, 200 out, I thought I was going to battle, but I knew that she'd run all the way to the line, and I was hoping that they'd get a bit tired. First time here, you know, travelling up. You know, I think we can get her better than she is today. You know, I think we had a better in Cape Town for 1 or 2 of her races. But this is an international class filly, really. I think she could win anywhere in the world.
I just want to say one thing to my team. Without you guys, this wasn't possible. Thank you.
What made her so special?
I think she was just, if you looked at her, she was massive. She weighed 520 kilos. She just had natural speed, and she was just relentless. You know, there was very little that could work with her. We used to actually work her on her own most of the time because nothing could stay with her. And she was just a superstar.
In that era, you also had a few other top horses, Bad Girl Runs and Ravelli Boy. I remember Ravelli Boy very well winning the Gold Cup.
Ravelli Boy, a big runner. Charlie Boy, Eurovision, red badge. But Ravelli Boy hit the front at the 200-meter marker, gone clear. Eurovision's running a big race on the outside. Eurovision and Ravelli Boy over the last 100. Ravelli Boy from Eurovision. Ravelli Boy has won the Cannon Gold Cup from Eurovision and red badge.
Here, Stratham, I think, also rode Ravelli Boy, if I'm not mistaken. He ran in a few Julys too.
Yeah.
At that stage, just to have those horses sort of keeping going at different divisions, Laissez-Faire sprinter, Angus, your sort of middle distance type, and Ravelli Boy, your long distance type.
Yeah, look, as you say, you know, Angus, we spoke about him earlier and how he just got better and better and what he achieved. Ravelli Boy, he ran 4th in the July, the year that he won the Gold Cup. He won a super race in the Gold Cup. We were also very, very confident that he would run well. And those were the days when the Gold Cup was still a Group 1. So, you know, Bad Girl Runs, phenomenal filly as a 3-year-old to win the Fillies Guineas and the Paddock Stakes in the same year. You know, there's still not a lot of 3-year-olds that have done that. So, you know, she was very special.
the day comes. Brett Crawford's no longer at La Plaisance, no longer with Plattner Racing. You've got to go on your own. Do you recall that day when all of a sudden you've got to swim for yourself?
I do indeed, very much so. We were actually, at the time we were renovating our house in Melkbos, and when I got home, and obviously the decision was made that we were going to go out on our own, I still made a joke with the builders and said, listen, I don't know how much further you need to go with the renovations because we're not sure where we're going here. But anyway, I was fortunate enough to get some boxes at Futura Park, funny enough. Only actually got 10 boxes because that's all that was available.
Yeah.
And at that point, Lionel Cohen gave me an opportunity to help him prepare about 15 or 20 horses for his ready-to-run sale. So we actually put up a whole lot of wooden boxes within the yard of the 10 boxes. And before we knew it, we had a busy yard, which we all knew was only going to be for like a 2-month period. But it was an opportunity to get to get going. Through that, I actually bought a couple of the horses that we prepared for the ready to run that ended up doing okay and winning us a few races. And that's pretty much where it all started.
How soon were Jackson and Futura in your training career? And how important were they to you?
So obviously, Jackson came pretty early, fortunate enough for me. I think, if I'm not mistaken, as a trainer in my own right, he was in my 2nd or 3rd season. And Ian Longmore bought him at the 2-year-old sale in Johannesburg. He was an expensive horse at the time, but he was a most amazing looking horse. And Mr. Mitchell, the late Jack Mitchell, was underbidder on him, and they spoke to each other, and they because he was underbidder, Ian and him made a pact that they would race together, which was fantastic. And he came into the yard, and from day one he just showed us that he had something. Most amazing action. Glenn had sat on him, and Glenn said, "There's something here." And that credit to Glenn, he was very good like that. He picked up on a lot of the younger horses early on that there's something here. So, he was just a phenomenal horse himself. I think for me, his standout moment for me was when he won the Derby. The way he won that race that day, beating probably one of the best horses South Africa's seen in the last 20 years, Variety Club. So that was a very special day for us.
And then Futura was in the same era, same time, wasn't he?
He came after, so he was I think he was the following season or the season after that. And once again, the late Jack Mitchell and Ian had a partnership. We raced him. He started to show us from early on that he won here on Met Day. It was just a graduation plate, but the way that he won was, and then we knew we had a horse to prepare for the season. So obviously took him to Durban. He did exceptionally well. He ran 3rd in the July that year, but in my opinion, he was an unlucky loser. It was a very, very muddled pace on the day. They went very slow. Made it a sprint for the line, and he was eating them up hand over fist the last furlong, but finished a very creditable 3rd, and then obviously went on to win the Champions Cup, which has been a very lucky race for me.
Ice Machine and Futura. Ice Machine hit the front. Futura's on the inside, but you go with Ice Machine the last 50. Futura digs in. Futura and Ice Machine. Maybe Futura from Ice Machine. And let's go with Futura. In the winner's box, number 1, Futura.
I guess the stars kind of aligned, because had Jackson and Futura not come when they did, it might have taken you a little bit longer to build. Do you think that would be a fair assessment, or do you think it was sort of inevitable that what you do at the sales, your eye for horses and all that, would eventually breed the success that you've subsequently got?
Yeah, I think no doubt, Alistair. You as hard as you work, as as lucky as you may deem yourself to be, you need to be given the opportunities, and those horses presented themselves as young unraced horses, and to watch them grow and achieve what they did was really outstanding. And there's no doubt that between them they both although we had already had multiple Group 1 success with the Plattners, to do it on your own and announce yourself on the stage as an open trainer, they were definitely the two, as well as Thunderdance, who was also, if I'm not mistaken, I think she might have even been our first Group 1 winner before Jackson and Futura.
Beach Beauty, Emerald Cove is flat to the boards on the outside. Thunder Dance, We Three towards the inside. There's plenty of chances. Beach Beauty is just in front, but Thunder Dance is coming together along the inside. Beach Beauty is fighting back. Thunder Dance has put her head in front, and Thunder Dance, the 3-year-old, goes on to beat Beach Beauty.
That's right, Neil. At the end of the day, she was always a filly with the most scope to improve. And I still feel in 6 months' time we'll see even a bigger and stronger filly. But she's done nothing wrong. She had a fantastic prep into this race. I knew she would be fit and well on the day. And I think this is the trip she's crying for. And I must just say to Ian and John, that they were also a big force behind her running here. So thanks to them, and thanks to them all for the support. I appreciate it.
I'm going to ask you about Thunder Dance. I'll never forget her winning a Turfentine under the lights in the Grade 1 Empress Club Stakes. That was one of your first forays, and I'm going to go down that avenue a little bit later on. That was one of your first raids up to Joburg, and it's obviously been a fruitful station for you since. Was that a bold step for you?
Well, you would say yes, but to be fair, I think that was all laid in stone through laissez-faire, because in my first season of training, I travelled her to Joburg to win the Computerform Sprint. In those days, it was actually run at Newmarket. And so, I think if you look back, it's like anything, success breeds success. And with laissez-faire having laid the foundation of traveling, I was never scared to travel horses. Still today, I'm not scared to travel horses. I think it's something that has to be done. And, if we look at countries around the world, especially in Europe, I mean, I understand logistics is a big thing in South Africa, but it's part of horse racing, and if you've got the right horses, you need to expose them to the best races wherever you may find them.
You've never been a stranger to raiding those you mentioned anywhere in the country. For example, PE, is that program open? I know the Joburg program's open. The Durban program is very, very open, considering your success of the last 2 years, which we'll visit now, and obviously Cape Town. But is it a long-term plan? For example, those 3-year-old features in PE, horses for Joburg, and throughout the Cape Summer Festival of Racing, how much planning goes into these raids and goes into programming these horses?
Yeah, I think programming's key, because a lot of times, you've got a good horse, but he's only going to be competitive at handicap level. So you need to protect him, keep his rating in the right place. It's not easy to do, but sometimes if you get things and align everything in place, it works. And I think Oriental and Winchester are key examples of that. So there's no doubt planning ahead is a massive thing, and you need to do it and sit down and work out where you're going with your horses when they present themselves, to show that they are of group level status.
Futura Park, you talk about Futura Park, and we know that the tracks in Cape Town are a little bit heavier than everywhere else in the country. What makes that such a successful training centre? You and Justin, Grade 1 winners across the year. It doesn't matter what distance, what horse, you get the most out of them. What is the secret there?
I just think it's the ability to be able to keep them sound. None of the tracks have a base. They're all natural sand. So in my opinion, you definitely can keep a horse sounder at Futura Park. Obviously, it does come with its difficulties. We don't have access to grass, whereas other training centres around the country, you have that benefit. But on the other side, their tracks are a bit firm and a bit harder. So, the balancing act of keeping them sound in different centres is a lot harder. So I think that's the key to Futura Park is the tracks and the lack of bases on the tracks.
Barry, Rob and Spider. Barry's been with you for a long time. Rob's been a very recent appointment, and he looks like he's integrated himself very nicely. And Spider's your right-hand man. How important are those three to your operation?
Oh, listen, as you know, the old cliche is there's no iron team. that's what we have. We have a fantastic team. Barry and Spider have been with me Spider's been with me since I started. And Barry came, I think, a year or 18 months after that. So, they've both been with me 10 years. And then obviously we've also got Craig, who's also been an integral part of the team. And obviously Robert's a new acquisition. He's been with us 7 or 8 months. He's fitted in exceptionally well. A young, enthusiastic guy who I think will go a long way in the game.
Do they all have their defined roles, or do they kind of just do the same thing because you've got so many horses?
Yeah, look, they've all got certain areas that they need to look after, but obviously at the end of the day they're still overlooking everything, but they definitely have their stations, as you may want to call it, to look after.
What about your cross-section of owners? When you think of all the big owners in South Africa, you think of Hollywood, you think of Drakenstein, think of Greg Bortz, Mary and Jess, Lawrence Werners, Arun Chadha, the Allard Steel Road team. You've got a few horses of the RTSA, Sandy Arundel and Eugene. There are not many big owners that you don't have in your yard. Mukund Gujado, one of your bigger ones. How proud are you that you've built up the stock, that you've been able to attract owners of this ilk?
You've answered that in itself, Alistair. Without those people, we wouldn't be where we are today. At the end of the day, they afford us the opportunity to go to sales and buy horses that we really like. So we've been very blessed. As you say, we've got a cross-section of owners, from the guys who've got 5% in a horse to the owners who have their own horses 100% outright.
But it's Captain America in front. Captain America, with short of 200 metres left to go, is travelling strongly and looks to have it all parcelled up. Sail South is giving chase, but Captain America in front and wins the money.
Thanks so much, Lisa. I just want to say a big thanks to Brett, to Lance Cheryl, to his mom, to Mrs. Nagel and them. I've been associated with this horse for the last three and a half seasons. He's definitely been the best horse I've ridden in my career so far. And again to Brett, I can't thank them enough.
The Cheryls have also been very instrumental in success with that. So very blessed, very fortunate, and very grateful.
And perhaps very importantly, the whole Ridgemont connection. Just with Mon Petit Cherie winning the Grade 2 the other day, how important that is. And I know that they want to build their mare stock, and they want biggest success you can get, whether it's here, whether it's in the UK, where they're also very apparent in what they do. How important have they been to the operation, and how close have you become with the Keith Svetzers and also obviously Craig behind the scenes?
They obviously from when we started together, they've been very instrumental in the growth of the yard. They obviously do things to the best of their ability. They replenishing their stock of mares on the farm, obviously replenishing stallions, and as we all know, the stallions are the key. So for me as a trainer, having sent one horse back now, Real Gone Kid, as a potential stallion, it's exciting. Who knows what he'll do. He's like any other stallion that goes to stud. He's got a 5% chance of making it, but all those things are exciting, and the way that they've invested in their breeding operation is quite phenomenal. So I have no doubt that things are going to work out exceptionally well for Ridgemont, because what they put into the game, they thoroughly deserve to get the ultimate success.
I think this conversation kind of flows into the next point, sales prep. How important that is, how much time you put into it, going around all the sales complexes around the country, or even possibly around the world if you get the opportunity to go and shop in other countries. How much time, how much homework, when that catalogue arrives, are you straight into it? How much trust do you have on bloodlines that you know, on mares that you know, on stallions that you know? Is it just a combination, or is there sort of an open mind when you go to sales?
So obviously, it's a combination of everything. Obviously pedigree is key. Stallions at the time that are firing are vital. I also put a lot of emphasis that I need to like the horse, so I always try and let a horse come out the box without knowing who it's by or what it's out of, because you want to try and make a fair assessment of the animal. And then if you like the horse that much and you open the page and it jumps out at you, that's even better. So obviously for me, pedigree is key, but I do like to like the horse and like the way it moves and conformation, and so sales prep is big, you know, and it's something that it's very hard. I mean, it's a whole industry in itself, and you know, South African trainers, a lot of us, we take a week out of our year to go and look at horses. It's very difficult, and it's that, as I say, that's a profession on its own, so it's not easy.
It's probably an underappreciated aspect of what trainers go through with the sales. You know, you just get back, you get home, and you look at how many steps you've done around the sales complex. And sales complexes are big, but I mean, you could walk around Hollywood Bets Kenilworth a few times. You probably wouldn't do as much work as what you did at the sales.
No, 100%. And as you say, you know, we've got a lot of sales throughout the year, so it is tiring. But at the end of the day, you know, that's if you know that within that book there are champions, so you've got to find them.
Let's talk a little bit about Hollywood. They are your sponsors. Make It Snappy. She was their first Grade 1 winner, if I'm not mistaken. She was indeed. That breakthrough for Owen, and knowing Owen the way that I do, that breakthrough, I mean, how proud are you that you were the one that they sponsored you, Make It Snappy comes along, and then you perform? I mean, it's hard enough getting one. To get all three, to tick all those boxes must have been a big thing for you.
Exactly.
With just on 200 metres left to go, it's Make It Snappy. She continues to go in front. Captain's Ransom is now being popped the question, and she starts to respond into the closing stages. It's Make It Snappy, though, that's digging down deep down the inside. Captain's Ransom is trying to peg her back, but Make It Snappy went all of the way. Make It Snappy beat Captain's Ransom.
You know, she also, I mean, very lightly raced. Unfortunately, her career probably ended a bit sooner than it should have due to some issues. But phenomenal filly, also big giant of a filly, massive action. And as you say, the fact that we were able to give Hollywood their first Group 1 winner was exceptionally, it was a fantastic day, a really proud moment, and you know, well deserved for what Hollywood have done for the industry, and so nice to have seen how it's like been a catalyst for their Group 1 winners, not just in South Africa but even over the jumps in Ireland. And so, you know, as the old saying goes, you know, those are the horses that keep the hunger. So
right, very important section of your life, James Crawford, your son. When you think of sort of the families in racing, you knew Matt de Kock was somehow going to get involved. You knew Adam Azzi was somehow going to get involved. I assume Justin Snaith was always hanging on to Chris Snaith's coattails. James wasn't really like that. He thinks he's a very, very good golfer. I know that he was a very talented young cricketer. Racing, were you surprised when he said, Dad, I'm going to give this a go?
Yeah, yes and no, because you know, in his early days, he was at the racecourse a lot, and maybe to his detriment that he got tired of it, because, you know, as a youngster on a Saturday afternoon, he was always with us at races instead of maybe doing his own thing. So I wasn't surprised when he was doing his own thing as a teenager and youngster would. But he always used to say, we used to have a standing joke, when he went to varsity, he always used to say, Dad, you know what, if none of this works, I'll just come work for you. That was a standard joke in the house. And
were his studies working?
No, which I could have tipped long before. But anyway, you know what, he had to go and try it. But in fairness to him, he was the first after year 1 at varsity to say, this is not for me. And then he said, I'm coming to work for you. So I actually laughed, and I thought, well, this will last a week or two. And he rocked up on a Monday morning at 5 o'clock, and what are we, 4.5 years down the line, and he's become a multiple Group 1 trainer in his own right.
Surprised and expectations and proud. Let's talk about those three things. You're obviously proud of what he's achieved, but in the space that he's done it, are you surprised?
Very much so. But you know, I've got to say a big thanks to his support group in Joburg. You know, he went to Joburg as a young kid, and everyone around him. And I mean, you'll know a lot of the guys that he's been basically looked after, namely Mike and a lot of the guys he played golf with. You know, they turned him into the man that he is. So, you know, I'm very grateful for that, for everyone who's helped him in Joburg, and they've really done a great job. And yeah, a very proud moment to see him train his first winner. When I'll never forget the day we sent the truck to Joburg with 7 horses on it, 4 of which I owned myself, to get his yard going. And yeah, I mean, now today he sits with 2 barns at Rankiesfontein. As I say, you know, we've had three Group 1 winners out of the operation since it started. So it's really been fantastic to watch, fantastic to be part of. And obviously as a father, exceptionally proud.
How excited are you about James's future?
Yeah, look, for him, the sky's the limit. You know, he's a young man. I do believe he's got some really good ideas about how to train a horse. And one thing he's always stuck to, which has been a principle for all of us, is just keep it simple. And that's what he does. But he does put a lot of thought into where he's going and what he's doing. He understands handicapping well. He understands the key to place horses in the right place. So no, I think, you know, the world's at his feet, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think we're all very, very proud of James. How important has that Joburg yard under James become? And I know that you obviously make frequent trips up there when the time is right, when you got the horses that are aiming for Hollywood Bets, Durban, July's, or potentially Triple Crown races in Joburg. How many avenues has that yard opened up for you?
I think it without a doubt, Alistair, it's opened a lot, because, you know, to be quite fair and frank, Cape Town is a very strong centre. So you get horses here that are knocking on the door, but it is an exceptionally hard place to win races. And obviously Joburg just gave us the option to send some of our weaker horses that in the past, before Cape Racing put on the races that they're putting on now, we were losing those horses to other centres, because no one wants to keep a horse that's not competitive. So it definitely had its purpose, and obviously we then built on that by raiding down to Durban from that, and that I think's been where the key is, because, you know, we've had some major success, and I think the strike rate of runners that have gone from up in Rankies down to Durban has been quite phenomenal. So it's really brought a new dynamic to the business, for sure.
Let's go down the avenue of those 2 great Julys, 2 consecutive Julys, 2023 Winchester Mansion, 2024 Oriental Charm. You talk about placing horses, getting them into the right races, and sort of knowing what you have with you. Let's start with the first one, Winchester Mansion under Cabello Mazzaniani. How long did it take for that plan to come together? When did it suddenly spark up that this is my July horse?
We always knew that he had potential as a 3-year-old, but after we cut him at the end of his 3-year-old career, we knew that this would be a horse. And obviously he was like sort of just off them in the handicaps. He was 96 at the time, I think. So we knew like the route that we had to go. We had to avoid any weight for age where we get some penalties, keep him in the handicaps, and you know, see how we go. So it does make it quite tricky, because you have to win and you have to get your rating up to be looked at for a race like the Hollywood Bets Durban July. So that's where it all started, and obviously sent him to Joburg, prepped him, took him down for his first run, and I think that was when he showed, when he had his first run in Durban, that this could possibly be a horse that we could line up for the Hollywood Bets Durban July.
Look left, see it again, Winchester Mansion and Dave the King. See it again and Winchester Mansion. See it again. Hit the front, 150 to go. Winchester Mansion is fighting back. See it again and Winchester Mansion. Eyeball to eyeball. Here it comes, Winchester Mansion. See it again. Green with Envy's getting into it, and down the inside, here's Cousin Casey flying. Cousin Casey on the inside, Oriental Charm.
Now, I must first and foremost say to JP, great ride, really. unbelievable. And, James prepared him on the high belt to the tee. He looked absolutely amazing. And he's just been a horse that's progressed with each and every run. I couldn't be happier for Greg and Gina and Leon. They're stalwarts in the game, and, nothing better than to win for them. It's so well deserved.
They also had a flawless prep. He did exactly what Winchester did last year. And it's funny because even his small mannerisms where, saddling him at the box, he did the exact same thing as Winchester last year, where he refused to go into the box to saddle. So, it's so funny, but, it's awesome. And to have the second year in a row with my father is just, it's a great moment.
Were those 2 days your best days in racing, winning the July both times? The one that outshone the other, or was there another day that I might be forgetting?
No, I think from a fatherly perspective, it was definitely my best 2 days racing, to win back-to-back Julys with my son. There's no feeling like winning the July, but to have done it with your own son has been probably very high in the list of best days races.
I'll just remind you that you're still dad, because James was keen on Winchester Mansion this year. You were keen on Oriental Charm. You got those years of experience over him.
Yeah, listen, it's always, the first year was easy. We were all rooting for Winchester, but last year he was probably a bit more sentimental towards Winchester, but I just felt that Oriental had a much better prep going into the race, and that was proven.
He was 4, much like Whisky Baron was when he started hitting his straps as well. Any similarities between the two?
Yeah, look, Whisky Baron, the same thing. We actually ran him in the Winter Series in Cape Town, and he actually ran, if I'm not mistaken, 2nd and 3rd in the last 2 legs of the Winter Series, and he ran behind Pete Staines' horse who won.
Katak.
Yeah. So we ran in the last leg of we ran 2nd to him. So from that we sort of also knew, and luckily enough his rating also came out of that, like at the bottom, just over the 100. So he also went the Peninsula route handicap, then into the Premiers, and then into the Met. So Oriental exactly the same. He ran in the Derby. We did get a 20-pound hike or 15-pound hike for the running 3rd,
which at the time looked harsh.
It did, and I, at the time, to be quite fair, thought I may have just killed this horse's career by maybe overstepping him at the time, because I wasn't quite sure where we stood with him. I always thought he was a nice horse, but as they get more mature and older, but we always knew that on his pedigree and out of a grazing mare, that the further we go, the better would be for him. So once again, got him to Durban off a fair rating. He ran in a handicap. He ran 3rd or 2nd, very good run, and then followed the same route as Winchester into the big one.
I remember when Oriental Charm made his debut at Hollywood Bets Durbanville, Raymond Danielson rode him, and he's always had a couple of quirks. Have you ironed those out over time, or is he still a bit of a character?
He is definitely still a character, but he's a lot better. He always used to want to hang to the right, but he's much better. We changed some gear on him, and that definitely helped a lot. So, yeah.
Do you have a horse for next year, this early stage, or are you still sort of...
I think we're still looking.
Yeah.
Last year, if you asked me the same thing, Oriental only won his maiden in September, so anything's possible.
Would you still go the same route if you did have the horse? Would you play them on the break 3 times in a row?
To be fair, I'd rather be winning at the top end of the merit rating than trying to work them into a race. But,
leaping a few nights before the July field gets revealed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but no, listen. That's what the game's about, just finding the right horse and mapping the right road for them.
What are your plans for Oriental Charm during this Cape Summer Festival of Racing? Hasn't been seen since the Hollywood Bets Durban July. I suppose off that rating, his program is pretty much mapped out, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. He's had one grass gallop. He's actually coming back to gallop again.
But it's Oriental Charm who's still in front. He got away, got a length clear. Sugar Mountain tries hard. Green with Envy is going up and down. He might run last at this stage. It's Oriental Charm. Royal Aussie on the inside, but Oriental Charm. He grits, he fights, and he's going to win a good race. Bring on the Cape Summer season.
Very pleased. Obviously, very special day in more ways than one for me. To have my son as a joint partnership today and obviously have our first Group 1 run as a winner. Very special, so very proud of him and what he's achieved in a short time. But Oriental, I thought, was outstanding today.
Then the plan is to give him a run in the green point, and then after that we've got a couple of options open to us after the green point, whether we go King's Plate or whether we go Premier's Trophy, and then the ultimate goal is the Met, because that's the trip he's looking for.
Do you think he's a weight for age horse?
You know, Alistair, if you had asked me that 6 or 7 months ago, I wouldn't be sure, but the way he's just progressed and how he's strengthened up as an individual, you know, he's a 4-year-old colt. He's doing a lot of things right. I thought his win in the July was super good. To lead from start to finish is no mean feat, even with the lighter weight. So I think he can make the progression. But yeah, it's going to be tougher at weight for age for sure.
Let's go down the Jockey avenue, because I've spoken to guys like Louis Mqotwa, who sadly is injured at the moment. But if I think about Brett Crawford from the days when you went out on your own, Carice Teton, then Carice goes to Hong Kong, then it's Glenn Hatt retires, then it's Corne Orfer, Corne goes to Mauritius, now it's Louis Mqotwa with Kabelo Matsanyane doing a lot of the light rides. How important is that loyalty to Jockey? Because these guys love working for you. There's no sort of, oh, Brett was difficult this morning, Brett made me do this. They're never walking a tightrope with you. It's black and it's white. You're obviously a hard taskmaster. But how important is that trust between you and the jockeys that work for you?
I think, you know, it's something that I learned long ago through Dennis Dreyer. And for me, it's key to an operation, you know, to have a stable jockey who understands your horses, gets to sit on them most days, can give you valuable feedback as to how they think the horse is doing at the time. It's gone a bit quiet or needs a bit more work or maybe freshen up. So that for me has been key, and been very fortunate that, as you say, along the way we've built relationships with guys along the way. And you know, it's the old saying, if they put in the hard yards, then they deserve to ride the horses in the races. And it's confidence comes from riding winners, and if you're given the opportunity and you have the talent, then there's no reason why it can't work. So, you know, James is an example with Kibelo, first Group 1 winner. Louis and myself, Louis' first Group 1 winner. So all of these guys have all done the hard yards with us, and they've all had dividends out of doing that.
You think around the country of trainers that are very good with their 2-year-olds. They're able to get those Grade 1 wins, whether Hollywood bet Scottsville, whether they come up and towards the end of the Joburg season into Gold Cup Day. You're not really known for rushing your 2-year-olds. You play the long game. Obviously, the results speak for themselves. Is that always something that you're mindful of? Are you a little bit slower with them? Do you like to play the long game with them? Or if you just got that freakish, precocious 2-year-old that you'd set them up early? I mean, do you play your cards close to your chest with your young horses, or are you cognizant of the fact that they're going to come into their own?
I think it's definitely possibly the type of horses we buy. We do generally look to buy the scopy horse that will probably only find his straps as a 3-year-old. So, you know, we have had the odd 2-year-old that we had a Schnitzel colt that won as a 2-year-old here. But generally, I would think the horses that we buy are horses we take a bit of time with. So I do like to let them find their feet. Obviously, try and get them going as early as we can. And obviously, the way things have changed in the last, say, 8 to 12 months with the incentives that Cape Racing have put on for 2-year-old racing, it is something that you have to adapt to and maybe look at getting those precocious horses out a lot earlier. So, you know, that's something that I definitely have to address. But generally, I do prefer to give the horses a bit of time if possible.
Are you happy with your string at the moment? How many horses between here and Joburg?
Very happy. I think we've got nice young string, and that's the key, you know, to have young horses in your barn that are exciting, have hardly raced or only had a race or two. That's where the future is. So yeah, between James and I, we've got quite a few 2-year-olds. So yeah, I think the future's looking good.
What are your goals for the season? Is champion trainer something that really sort of that you want to get, or is it something that grade 1 trainer? What's your attitude towards that?
Oh, look, I think, champion trainer comes with the fact that you win big races because, obviously you can win a lot of races, but, at the end of the day, the championship's decided on prize money. And the big races are what holds the key. So if you focus on trying to get the best out of the horses at group level, you're always going to be in the shake-up for championship trainer. But for me, it's about doing the best for our owners. And obviously, if that is winning Group 1 races. So that's what we focus on, try and identify the horses early, identify the right paths for each horse, and the rest will look after itself.
Brett, of all the grade 1s around the country, do you have any idea how many you've won and which ones you've won most?
I do. We've won 37. The most we've won has been the Champions Cup. We've won that 4 times. And then after that, we have a fairly long list of races. So
the Mallorca on that list?
No, it's not. South African Filly Sprints on the list, Gold Cup twice, Fillies Guineas twice, Paddock Stakes 3 times, Champions Cup 4 times, the Derby twice, Queen's Plate at the time, Cape Guineas twice, Gold Challenge twice, Empress Club, Horse Chestnut, Tsorgo Sun Sprint, the Willavington, the Daily News twice, Hollywood Durban July twice, and the Mercury Sprint once.
Brett, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful chatting to you, wonderful getting into your head and finding out what makes you tick, and may the next few months be everything that you wish for, and may the next chapter, whatever that is, be as fruitful and successful as it can be.
Yeah, well, the next chapter's on its way already, Alistair. James wrote his trainer's license last week.
Oh, wow.
He passed, just waiting on the licensing committee, and once we hear from them, the plan is to make the announcement that him and I will be making a joint venture together, so Brett and James Crawford, which is going to be really exciting for him and for me. So that will be the next chapter in the Crawford racing.
And the tartan uniform remains the same as well?
100%.
Good man. Brett, thank you so much.
Pleasure.